Hello Internet, Seth Skorkowski, and today we'll be taking a look at the Conan adventure, The Seethers in Darkness. Written by Kevin Ross, the scenario appears in 2017's Jeweled Thrones of the Earth, published by Modiphius Entertainment. The scenario is short, only 15 pages, and includes plenty of combat, treasure, the possibility for some great role-playing, and features some strong Lovecraftian elements. However, there are a few small issues and one glaring problem that game masters will need to address before they can run it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer my tips and my suggestions and my complaints as a game master who has successfully run this adventure.
And by Crum, I'm Jack the NPC. I'm going to give this one to you from a player's side of things, as well as my usual quips and commentary.
But before we can go any further, I must warn you that there will be spoilers. Tons and tons of spoilers. So any players out there, please stop now, but definitely send your game master this way for some advice and tips on running the scenario best for you. Okay, game masters, let's cut this open and read its entrails. The setup for the adventure is that the player characters are hired by an elderly scholar, Amin Selini, to accompany him and to act as bodyguards as he goes out in the desert to locate a lost and ancient city. He offers them 2 gold a week and an even split of any treasure that they find, providing that he gets first choice of any artifacts of any important historical significance. If the player characters need outfitting for camels or anything like that, he will offer to front them the money. That way we can just get straight to the adventure. Now the truth is that Amin Selini is in fact a magically disguised serpent person. He is a scholar, but his real interest is the history of his own race, and he's particularly interested in a particular artifact that he believes that he's going to find in this lost city. We'll discuss more about him later on in this video, but for now, game masters, you should present him as being very friendly, very talkative, and very likable. Have fun playing him and presenting him that way. Try to get the players and the player characters to really like this character. Now, the Lost City is located somewhere in the desert southwest of Zambola, an area roughly the size of West Virginia. For my game, I added a short encounter with some brigands here. Not much, just enough to get a little bit of the blood flowing early on and allow the characters a little bit of bonding.
Not much? Holy crap, that combat went south for us. Our dice made it crystal clear that they were planning on screwing us that day.
If you do add a fight scene like I did, that's completely your call, but if you do, definitely have Amin try to hide somewhere, try to get behind the player characters. After all, they are his bodyguards that he's hired for this whole thing, but also, if he takes too much damage, that's going to destroy the illusion that he's human, and it's going to reveal his true nature just a little too early in the adventure for that, so try to have Amin try to get out of the way and let the player characters be heroes and try to kill all the bad guys. Otherwise, if you don't do that, the scenario opens about a week into the desert. Amin Selini has been locating and reading these various inscriptions that are on the wind-weathered rocks, and he's using them as kind of markers to go through the desert in order to find where he believes this city is. And it's at this time that a sandstorm descends on the party.
Holy crap, guys, this storm looks like bad news to me. Let's go on up to that rock outcropping up there and we can wait it out. And Amin, where the hell is Amin going?
While the player characters are trying to get to shelter at some nearby rock formation, they're going to have to make their rolls to keep their mounts from running away or to keep from taking any damage from all the sand that's getting blown at high speeds. Amin Selini is going to ride off for a distant rock outcropping instead of the one the player characters are going for. Now, while it will be very difficult for the player characters to notice that he is actually intentionally spurring his camel toward it, it should be obvious to the PCs that he is going toward this other distant rock outcropping that's currently being kind of consumed by this wall of sand coming toward them. So even if the player characters do charge after him and they try to catch him and they manage to make all the rolls, because those are going to be difficult rolls, Amin should still arrive at that rock outcropping, which is the city entrance, first. GMs, use Doom if you need to. The important part is that Amin must reach the rocks that shield the entrance to the city, and he needs to go in before the player characters arrive. Now, if the player characters do not follow him, they just run to the closest rock outcropping and they wait the storm out, you should still have been obvious to them where he went. Because once the storm is over, there's not going to be any footprints and the landscape will have changed a little bit due to the storm. So you need to make sure that it is clear to them where he was headed before the storm hit. That way they can go and follow him and make pursuit. Otherwise, the adventure is over before it even gets a chance to start. Now, once they do arrive at the entrance, they'll see some stairs that lead down into the earth, and eventually they're going to find some of Amin Cellini's footprints as they go deeper and deeper, and eventually they're going to reach the subterranean city. At this point, a convenient rockfall closes the entrance behind them, sealing them inside, and they're going to have to explore this city in order to find another way out in order to leave it. Now, the city itself is very reminiscent of The Nameless City by H.P. Lovecraft. Not an exact copy, but it's obviously inspired by it. The concept is that a race of serpent people built this city long ago, slowly degenerating into smaller, stupider versions of themselves until eventually they were just lost to time, leaving only this ruined city and the spirits of the dead residents that still populate it. So everyone inside is dead, but their spirits linger on. Now for this, we get several maps of the city, examples of the galleries, the central temple square, and its interior. The PDF version also comes with player versions of these maps that don't have any of the key location descriptions, which is kind of nice. Personally, I would have preferred a map for the players that actually showed what the city looked like, minus any of the damage from chasms or rockfalls, kind of an original map of what the city would have looked like back in its heyday. However, the main city map for Game Masters has a few issues which we definitely need to address. One section of the module describes a dotted line that shows Amin Cellini's footprint path that the player characters can follow, but there is no dotted line that appears on the map. Another section refers to X's on the map that signify locations for random finds or encounters that the Game Master can use, but there are no X's that appear on the map. Finally, a third section refers to a place marked with an A or a B to indicate where player characters might spot light coming from the outside, which that will lead them to the exits, but there are no A's or B's indicated on the map. None of that stuff appears on here. So after an exhaustive search, because I first originally assumed this was an error on my part that I couldn't find them, I discovered that other people had noticed the missing information as well. This is from the Modiphius forums, which are now archived, and these are from DriveThruRPG, and the oldest comment about this is from March of 2017. Now, eventually I did find an official response for all this on Google Plus of all places. One of the line developers acknowledged that in December of 2017 that the map in the book was wrong and showed a copy of the author's original map that had all the correct marks that were on it. When asked a few weeks later if the PDFs had been updated, the official answer was no, and Game Masters should use the author's rough map for that info, which once again, all of this was on a Google Plus group, so any new Game Masters that might have just purchased this scenario either online or at their friendly game shop or whatnot, in order to find the correct maps, they're going to have to search for an over a-year-old thread on Google Plus, which is about to go away anyway, so it's going to be very difficult for them to ever access this original map. So as far as I've been able to tell, the maps in the scenario are wrong. They've known about this for 2 years now, and there has been no update to them. No corrected PDFs have been made, and while I do understand that the physical books have already been printed, and it's not really economically feasible for them to just print up completely new books with the corrected maps in them, there hasn't been any update or announcement on the Modiphius website to tell Game Masters that purchase this book that there is an error in it, and possibly a link to a free PDF that's got the corrected maps inside, and updating the PDFs wouldn't have that sort of cost involved as the physical books, but the PDF, the one that I got, didn't have any updated map at all.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. So you are telling me that they made a mistake and they published a book with an incorrect map. That is no big deal. We have all made mistakes, and that is something that's easily correctable in this day and age. But then they have done nothing about that in over 2 years. Yeah, that is some bullshit if you ask me.
That it is. Though it hasn't been over 2 years yet, we're getting really close to it being 2 years since somebody informed Modiphius about it, so they still have a little bit of time to correct it in time. Now, I purchased both my physical book and my PDFs from the publisher in August of 2018. I did a box opening for it, and nowhere in my transaction with the publisher was there an updated PDF or just a simple note or an email saying, hey, we messed up, or hey, we messed up, follow this link and download the completed maps for this scenario. scenario inside, we're sorry about the inconvenience. I have reviewed dozens of adventures for multiple systems by multiple publishers, and this type of complaint is a first for me. So Game Masters, here is how I overcame that problem. Armed with the author's original map and using my poor Photoshop skills, I took the scenario map and I updated it, first removing the east and west vertical passages because they weren't on the author's map. I then added a dotted line for Amin Salini's path, followed by the X's to denote the finds and encounters. I added the A's and B's to see the light coming from outside, and finally I shifted the rubble in the bottom right to allow passage in order to get to that exit, but I made it to where my players still had to make athletics rolls in order to squeeze through that narrow, partially collapsed passageway. It's not a perfect match to what the author had, but it's close enough for me. Now, Game Masters, I have added a link below if you would like to get a copy of my map and use it for your own games. Now, back to the adventure. The player characters are going to find themselves in this subterranean city. Many of the doors and passageways are a little bit too small for humans. The east and west passages are called galleries, which open up into the ruined apartments and rooms where the residents lived and worked. The north-south passages are the crypts, which are lined with thousands of niches containing skeletons of these dead creatures. The locations that are now marked with a green X are called finds, and Game Masters will need a roll on this handy chart whenever a player character comes to a find. These can be treasure, a corpse, a cave-in that they have to dodge, or swarms of flesh-eating beetles, just like in the 1999 Mummy, a film I reference pretty often in my reviews. Whenever the player characters enter one of the crypt passages, or even crossing one at one of the intersections, they're going to have to make an awareness check in order to feel the seething hatred that's coming from the dead. And they're going to need to make a discipline check, and depending on how that goes will determine if or how many of these undead creatures are actually going to crawl out of the niches and try to attack them. This means that we are going to have a lot of combat encounters along the way through the city, and because so many passages are now blocked by chasms and cave-ins, our heroes are going to be doubling back and wandering around quite a bit. Now, at the center of the city is a large square featuring a temple building and several statues, which all depict strange and forgotten gods.
And if your players are like Oz and are intimately familiar with the elder gods of the Cthulhu mythos, then describing these statues ain't going to be any big deal for you at all. But if you and your players are not as familiar with Lovecraft's mythos, then that's no big deal. Just describe these things as alien and weird and with way more tentacles than one might normally expect.
They'll also encounter a cave horror here, which is kind of like a giant blind monkey bat thing. Now, since there's only one that's encountered at the beginning, and depending on if your players have had a pretty easy time of it in order to get to this point, Game Masters, you might want to upgrade this from a toughened level bad guy to a nemesis level bad guy. And then later on in the scenario, they might come across another, but there's only two that are in the entire city, so I recommend kind of beefing them up a little bit, making it a bit more of a worthy fight. Once they enter the temple itself, that's when they're going to find Amin Salini. The module says that he's kind of lost in translating all the old carvings that he finds here, but for my game I had him hiding because he heard all the player characters having a battle outside, and he was trying to hide away because he didn't know what was going on. Now, Game Masters, I strongly suggest that in this room you let your player characters make some lore checks in order to learn more about the city and about these people, their downfall, their religion. The module sort of breezes past this without any mention, but my players were very interested in learning more about the city when they arrived here. Now, I told them that the center of the city's power came from these two fist-sized gems. Now, conveniently enough, there's a large statue of two intertwined snakes in this room, and it's broken, and its eyes are all fist-sized gems, and one of those gems happens to be missing. Now, because my player characters were very interested in these gems because they had made their lore checks, I then told them that the recess for the missing gem was a little bit different than the other three. It was kind of a little bit more egg-shaped than the others, which were all round. And this really piqued their interest because they were like, aha, this one was different. And then they made some observation tests after they had removed the other gems, and that's when they learned that one of the other gems that they had removed, its recess had originally been egg-shaped, but somebody had gone in thousands of years before and kind of modified it in order to fit this other gem. So it told them that there used to be two gems in this room that were egg-shaped, and at some point, thousands of years ago, One of them was taken away and it was replaced with a different gem, and this is what they'd assumed would possibly be the gems that were the centerpiece of this city. With a little bit more searching on the stairs, they're going to discover the missing gem, which is called the Eye of Sefet, which is a very powerful serpent person artifact. Now this here is the first and only time that Amin Selene is going to want one of the items that they discover, and per their agreement that they had with him when he was hired on, he gets first choice in anything of certain significance, which these are obviously going to be. Now, Game Masters, make very special note if any of the player characters touch this gem. The description of the item clearly states that Serpent people will be compelled to have to kill any human that touches this sacred relic of theirs. And while Amin has been very good to the PCs and a very good friend of them up to till now, this might be the point which that changes, or when he starts plotting in order for that to change because somebody has defiled the sacred relic of his race. Now, the lowest level contains the Tomb of the Kings. This room has niches along each wall holding the richly clad dead kings. Quick note, the module says there are 7 niches per side, but the map only shows 6. The Serpent King room proved to be one hell of a fight for us, and I was worried at the beginning about this becoming a total party kill, but thankfully my players chose to retreat once they saw that the fight wasn't really going their way. Once the first of these kings is killed, all the bodies of all the dead throughout the city, thousands and thousands of dead, will start doing this kind of whispering chant that starts growing louder and louder. And it starts becoming clear as dust starts raining down from the ceiling that the dead are trying to bring the city down on them because they would rather destroy the city than have these human defilers wandering around and destroying everything. So they're going to choose to destroy their city in order to kill the player characters.
Holy crap, guys, we have got to get out of here before this whole place comes down on us.
The retreat from the city was a very fun scene for us because I had allowed my player characters to have a map of what the city originally looked like. When they'd done their lore checks, they found a map that showed all the paths in and out of the city. So armed with that, they were running through all these passages trying to get out, but that map didn't show all the cave-ins and the chasms that were blocking their way. So they had to do a lot of doubling back, trying to find the correct path in order to reach some of the exits. And then every time they crossed one of the crypt rooms, the undead would rise up to attack them, which this led to kind of a merry chase through the city as, rocks and dust are falling down and this whispering is going everywhere and they're trying to get out of here in time. There's kind of an army of these undead horrors coming after them. And, periodically at one point, some of the rocks fell down, they crushed all the undead behind them, but then some more started coming from another direction. So it led to a really fun scene as they're trying to get out of here because they know that death is only moments away. Once they make it out of the city, that is the end of the adventure, and what the player characters do next is completely up to them. Now, one area that I do want to mention now is Amin Selene. There are a lot of different ways that GMs can play him, just depending on their group. Is he a villain or is he a good guy? Does he try to help the PCs or does he try to abandon or possibly kill the player characters? The module leaves all of this open to you, and I really do love that aspect to it. For our game, one of the player characters realized early on that he was not human. It was during a moment of stress, and that player character made a really good observation check and saw that his illusionary disguise kind of shifted, and the PC saw through it. And then later, when they were fleeing the city, some rocks fell on them, and one of them hit Amin Selene, did enough damage that the illusion was temporarily shattered. Now, some player characters, they might choose to attack him right away because he's some sort of inhuman monster, but for my game, my players decided to talk to him.
Okay, bub, now that we are out of that city, what is up with those scales of yours? And are we still cool and everything? Because honestly, I don't think we're in any condition to fight you right now.
Amin explained to the PCs that yes, he really was a scholar, but his interest was trying to find the history of his own people, also discover if there were any survivors and find out what happened to his people, as well as gather together any of their old artifacts from their age-old empire before it was lost forever. This ended up being a great bit of role-playing and a wonderful end piece for our game. In fact, our sorcerer ended up turning Amin Selene into his next patron. But the module leaves all of this completely up to you. Maybe he's going to betray the heroes. Maybe he really is a bad guy. Maybe the PCs are going to attack him. Who knows? That's completely your call. But for us, it ended up being a fantastic role-playing opportunity and a good piece of world building as Amin used his Haunt the Mind spell in order to kind of create this illusionary image before them of the Serpent People Empire and what the world was like before the Age of Man. Overall, despite my serious complaints about this module having an incomplete map, my players and I had a lot of fun with the scenario. I love the dungeon crawl aspect to it. I said in other videos that I'm a dungeon game master, so I really like that aspect to it. I also really love the Lovecraftian aspects that they brought into it, and the ambiguity of whether the scholar may or may not be a monstrous villain, or he may or may not be a monster that ends up befriending the PCs. So Modiphius, if you are watching, I really hope that you update the PDF with the completed map, as well as offer some sort of a map download option for those people who purchased a physical copy of the book, either online or at their local game shop. Because outside of the map issue, that is my only complaint, and I give this adventure a huge thumbs up. My players had a great time with it, and at the end of the session, they were excited about the game and they were eager to schedule the next one. And in the end, that's really the best game ending that I could ever ask for.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our stuff, such as game reviews or RPG philosophy, just hit that subscribe button. Till next time, gamers, you have a great day. You know, you have a really good opportunity right here where you can say that Amin later becomes Szechuan in our 1930s Pulp Cthulhu campaign. That would be freaking hilarious.